Hey, what's up everyone? It's me again. I decided to just make another video because I'm kind of bored. In this video I'd just like to go over some of the bands that I am interested in and some of the bands that I love, all regarding the metal. All regarding the old school metal bands. And maybe a little bit of some new bands that I've been hearing today. So let's get started. Well, first of all, like four of my favorite bands have to be King Diamond. Well, I won't even say really. Well, I've always thought of it this way: either King Diamond or Merciful Fate. But I just had to go with Merciful Fate, even though King Diamond is in both bands. So Merciful Fate, Testament, Iron Maiden, and Anthrax. So those have to be my favorite bands. And recently I just discovered Candlemass, which I've been real hooked onto them. So Candlemass are pretty awesome. Huge fan. I'm a huge fan now of Messiah Marklin. Just has a real unique voice. And so I mean, basically, I'm more of a thrash metal fan. Like my favorite subgenre of metal, of course, is thrash metal. I mean, because I listen to a lot of stuff like Overkill, Havoc, Municipal Waste. I mean, I know that's like newer crossover thrash, but I also listen to like Death Angel, Nuclear Assault, Sepultura, Anthrax, Megadeth, Slayer. All the old school stuff, all the old good shit. I mean, of course, and crossover thrash is pretty awesome today. I'm discovering a lot of unknown crossover thrash bands that they provide that old school sound. So pretty awesome bands. And then second, I have to go with my second favorite subgenre, probably either death metal or doom metal. But I can tell you what each subgenre, each death and doom metal that they offer. I mean, because death metal offers just the more extreme sound. Of course, using the double bass, usually sometimes a lot of blast beats, and then of course the low grunt death growl voice. And a lot of bands that started off with this revolution was, of course, like Cannibal Corpse and Deicide, Death. A lot of people like to consider Possessed as the first death metal band, which I could agree. Although I feel like Death really revolutionized the sound of it, because although Possessed, they put out Seven Churches in '85, people they consider it the very first death metal album because it was just a little bit more than just thrash. You heard a lot of just more fast integrity, and the vocals were more shrieked. So that's why a lot of people consider Possessed, Seven Churches the first death metal album. But if you hear Scream Bloody Gore by Death, you also hear more death metal in it. You just hear more double bass in it. You hear more not blast beats really, because Death never did that, but you just hear Chuck's just monstrous death metal voice, and I think that's why Scream Bloody Gore revolutionized the sound of death metal. And then of course you had like the bigger bands like Cannibal Corpse, who were infamous for having a lot of their albums at the beginning of their career. They had their albums, I believe, banned in several countries because of the album art. And to me, that is still one of the most important things about death metal, is the artwork. I mean, here Cannibal Corpse came out in like the early '90s, '90, I think. They just had some awesome album work, I thought. I mean, Eaten Back to Life, you never saw anything that brutal before, and especially you have never seen anything like the album art for Tomb of the Mutilated. Just both awesome album art. Especially too, not just that, but Butchered at Birth too, which is pretty brutal. So that's why Cannibal Corpse is also kind of famous. And they have classic hits like Fucked with the Knife and Hammer Smashed Face, Eaten Back to Life, Rancid Amputation, all the good songs. If I was to choose being more of a fan of the two singers, I believe Chris Barnes and George Fisher, I'd have to go just with Chris, just by a little bit more. I mean, I love Corpse Grinder. He's awesome with the band today. but it's just something about Chris. Like his voice was just more distinct as a death metal singer. I mean, Corpse Grinder is as well, but I mean, with you had more classic stuff with Chris, and I still think that a lot of the stuff with George too is pretty good, but you just didn't have a lot of similar, well, more memorable songs that Chris did with the band. And Deicide too. Deicide were probably one of the most. They were probably one of the unique death metal bands at the time because they were one of the first to symbolize the occult. So, you know, being a satanic death. Well, I wouldn't really consider him satanic. I just consider Glenn Benton satanic. Of course, he's satanic enough to the point of writing an inverted cross on his forehead, which is pretty awesome, I think. But I mean, Deicide offers just a death metal album, death metal songs with a lot about the occult and killing Christians and stuff. I believe that's just really awesome. Knowing that, I know for a fact that a lot of the stuff from Once Upon the Cross did not play well in Middle America. So I mean, that's why Deicide were one of the most like unique death metal bands too. Just what they were symbolizing. Of course, I love their debut album, and as well as Legion, one of their other classic albums, and Serpents of the Light too. Serpents of the Light is probably, it's got most of my favorite tracks on it, like Slave to the Cross and Bastard of Christ, Blame It on God. So you had great songs by Deicide too. And really, my only thing is, I'm not against anyone on this, but I mean, Glenn, he doesn't necessarily seem like the coolest guy, just because, I mean, he kind of just not really much pushes his Satanism, but he just has to go too deep with sharing it, basically, with just sharing the Satanism, sharing what he really does. And I mean, there's no problem with that at all. It's just like, just kind of tone it down. All right, you're a Satanist, so just, you know, just keep it to yourself. Just let everyone figure it out for themselves. And then also other death metal bands like Autopsy, Vader, Cataclysm, Morbid Angel too. Morbid Angel's got some good stuff. You know, everyone knows everything off of Altars of Madness and Blessed Are the Sick, Covenant, and of course he had good stuff off of, oh yeah, Domination. Domination's got to be one of my favorite Morbid Angel albums, and Covenant, because he had, first of all, on Covenant, my favorite song is God of Emptiness. You know, awesome track. Very dark, very raw. That's why I really enjoyed that song. And then you had from Domination, Where the Slime Live. Now, what I loved about Where the Slime Live, the song, is that Dave, he basically sounded like he was underwater. Or just his voice did actually sound slimy. I don't know really how to put it in that way, but I just kind of felt that. So that's really my take on death metal. And then for doom metal, you had great bands like Candlemass. I mean, really, I'm like discovering more doom metal bands, but I mean, for right now, I really know a lot of stuff from Candlemass. I recently checked out Candlemass like a couple of months ago. I think the first song I heard was Bewitched, and it's still a favorite. And then I discovered a lot of the stuff from Epicus, Doomicus, Metallicus, and I know that they had a different singer. That was right before Messiah joined the band, and I can never remember. I can't remember the original singer's name. So, I mean, Messiah Marcolin, awesome singer, very talented, very unique voice. Everything off of Nightfall and Ancient Dreams are pretty awesome. So, I mean, like, that's pretty much right now I know for doom metal. I'm still gonna go more into it. And so, that's that for that. And some of the newer bands that I listened to today are, of course, like Lamb of God and Dimmu Borgir, System of a Down. I know System of a Down is really much of a kind of a new metal band, but there's something about them that's just different. I think it's their rhythm and their beats, their riffs. They're just, I don't know, I just love them. I'm not a fan of new metal, that's my thing. But there's something about System that's just different, and I like them. I love especially everything off of Toxicity, and then off of I think it was their debut album too. Yeah. So that's basically who I'm a fan of today. I just gotta keep it old school too. I mean, this deathcore shit spreading around, it's really getting on my nerves. My reason for not liking that, it's too mainstream. It's too really not metal. It's not even metal at all. And then of course I like to go into the old stuff, you know, like the Doors and Deep Purple, the Who, Zeppelin, Sabbath. You know, a lot of the old school rock bands. You know, old school like hard rock bands. And then of course everything from the new wave of British heavy metal. You had bands like Maiden, Priest, Motorhead, Diamond Head, Tigers of Panting, Angel Witch, just all of those great, you know, bands. Especially Maiden. Who doesn't love Maiden? Maiden's got to be one of the greatest, if not the greatest, heavy metal band today. Aside from Sabbath, Metallica, you had Iron Maiden. Iron Maiden have been filling arenas for over 30 years, and for them to have the freaking Ed Force One is just awesome. Every album I've never had any problem with. It's just always sounded Maiden. Although I wasn't a fan of the what's it called? The singer Blaze Bayley. I wasn't a fan really of not A Matter of Life or Death, but Virtual Xi and the X Factor. Yeah, I believe it was the X Factor. Just a little upset with those two albums, but everything else I had no problem with. It's just so awesome. So that's after that. My gay ass brothers here, and stay metal, stay heavy, stay thrash, death, doom metal. Just say fuck posers, man.